Horror movie fans often search by feeling first. They remember a type of film, a hotel that makes every hallway feel unsafe, a possession story that treats faith and doubt seriously, a survival story where the threat changes how people move through the world. This guide uses that movie habit as the map. Instead of ranking horror books by fame, it matches 8 reliable novels to 8 familiar film subgenres. The Shining covers isolated hotel dread. The Exorcist covers serious possession horror. Bird Box covers survival tension and unseen danger. The Silence of the Lambs covers crime horror with a controlled investigative shape. The Haunting of Hill House covers ghost story unease. Dracula covers Gothic monster horror. It covers large, small-town horror. Mexican Gothic covers decaying mansion horror with a modern Gothic feel. The point is not to prove which book is scariest. The point is to help you choose the right first read for your tolerance, taste, and attention span. If you love horror movies but bounce off long novels, start with the lane that already works for you on screen, then move one step deeper. The Shining, Stephen King. This is psychological hotel horror with a slow tightening mood, an isolated setting, and a reading experience built around pressure. The book is part of the Shining series, but it is the practical starting point and the Amazon safe recommendation for most readers. If your favorite horror films are about places that feel wrong before anything is explained, this is the match. The appeal is not only the famous hotel, it is the way the setting turns ordinary rooms, weather, routines, and silence into pressure. For movie fans, this works especially well because the premise is easy to visualize, but the novel has room to move more slowly than a film. It lets discomfort gather in small domestic details. That makes it a better choice for viewers who like atmosphere more than constant shocks. Intensity is medium to high, mostly because the emotional pressure is sustained. It is not the lightest first horror book, but it is one of the clearest bridges from iconic cinema to page-based dread. Choose it if you want a famous, serious, wintry horror experience. The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty. This is religious possession horror with a serious tone, a modern household setting, and a reading experience that feels procedural. It is a good match for viewers who like films where the horror is treated as a crisis of belief, medicine, family, and authority at the same time. The novel is direct, controlled, and much more grounded than many people expect. Its strength is not noise. Its strength is the feeling that careful adults are trying to understand something that refuses to fit neat categories. That gives the book a sober documentary flavor, even when the subject is extreme. For a beginner, the main warning is intensity. This is not a cozy gateway. It is heavy, focused, and serious from the start. Still, it is very readable because the situation is clear, and the chapters have strong forward motion. Choose it if you like possession films, faith-based dread, medical uncertainty, and horror that feels like a grave investigation rather than a haunted adventure. A useful way to think about it is this: the book is not asking you to enjoy chaos. It is asking you to watch rational systems reach their limits. That makes it a better fit for viewers who like serious supernatural films, not playful occult adventures. Bird Box. Josh Malerman. This is survival horror with a high-concept threat, stripped-down settings, and a reading experience built around sensory limitation. The book is part of the Bird Box series, but this first novel is the clean entry and the one most movie fans should use. Its film subgenre match is simple. If you like survival horror where one rule changes everything, this is the lane. The interesting reading fact is that the novel has to create tension without relying on normal visual description in the usual way. That makes it unusually suited to audio as well, because the listener shares the same restricted sense of space. The prose is lean, the chapters move quickly, the commitment is much smaller than a giant Stephen King novel. Intensity is medium, but the tension is steady. It is a strong pick for people who want something modern, fast, and easy to finish. Choose it if you liked the feeling of watching characters make small practical decisions under a rule they cannot ignore. Another advantage is clarity. The rule of the world is easy to understand, so you are not spending energy learning lore. You are spending energy noticing how people adapt. That makes it ideal for a first modern horror read after a movie adaptation. The Silence of the Lambs, Thomas Harris. This is crime horror with a clinical tone, investigative pressure, and a reading experience that feels precise rather than supernatural. It is part of the Hannibal Lecter sequence, but this book is the most famous bridge for movie fans and can be read with enough clarity as a starting point. The best match is not ghost horror or monster horror. It is the film lane where procedure, psychology, and dread share the same room. The book is useful for readers who normally enjoy thrillers but want a darker edge. It has momentum, clean scene construction, and a professional texture that makes it easy to follow. The horror comes from attention, control, and the sense that every detail matters. Intensity is high in subject matter, so it is not the gentlest choice. But it is also one of the most accessible because the investigation gives the reader a clear path through the material. Choose it if you like tense crime films, interview scenes, expert analysis, and horror that feels intelligent rather than chaotic. It also works well for viewers who want horror with professional structure. The sections feel purposeful, so the darkness never becomes vague. The Haunting of Hill House, Shirley Jackson. This is literary ghost story horror with an elegant tone, a contained setting, and a reading experience built around uncertainty. If your favorite horror films are less about visible threat and more about rooms, suggestion, and fragile perception, this is one of the best matches. It is shorter than many classics, but it asks for patience. The interesting fact for readers is that the book became a model for psychological haunted house fiction because it refuses to flatten the experience into simple explanation. That makes it feel modern, even though it is an older novel. For movie fans, this is the opposite of spectacle. It is quiet, it is controlled, it makes the house feel like a pressure system. Intensity is medium, but the style is more literary than purely plot-driven. That means it may not be the best first pick for someone who wants fast scenes. It is excellent for readers who like atmosphere, ambiguity, and the feeling that the scariest part of a story is what the mind starts doing with silence. Read it when you want mood over speed and suggestion over explanation. That expectation makes the book much easier to appreciate. Dracula, Bram Stoker. This is classic Gothic monster horror with letters, journals, travel, and a reading experience that feels like a discovered case file. For movie fans, the important thing to know is that the book does not read like one straight modern chase story. It is built from documents. That structure can feel surprisingly fresh, because each piece adds a slightly different angle. The film subgenre match is Gothic monster horror. Castles, ships, cities, superstition, modern tools, and old fears all share the same frame. Many editions exist because the novel is in the public domain, so the title is stable even when covers, introductions, and notes vary. For Amazon and Audible planning, pick a clean modern paperback or audiobook edition and use it consistently. Intensity is moderate by current standards, but the atmosphere is strong. It is a good starter for viewers who like classic monster movies, Victorian mood, and the pleasure of seeing how many later vampire stories grew from one source. Choose it if you want history and readability together. It, Stephen King. This is large-scale small-town horror with childhood memory, adult unease, and a reading experience that feels wide and immersive. The title is simple, but the commitment is not. This is one of the longest books in the guide, so it should not be the automatic first pick for every horror movie fan. It belongs here because it matches a very specific film craving, a town with secrets, a group memory, and a sense that fear can live across years. For readers who love long films, miniseries, ensemble stories, and thick atmosphere, the size may be part of the appeal. For readers returning to books after a long break, it may be too much too soon. The safer strategy is to choose it when you already know you like Stephen King, or when you want a big seasonal project. Intensity is high, and the pacing is deliberately broad. Choose it for immersion, not efficiency. If you want the King feeling with less commitment, start with The Shining first and come back to it later. This is also why the book should be described honestly in a beginner guide. It can be rewarding, but it asks for time, focus, and tolerance for a huge cast. Treat it like a long television season in book form, not like a quick weekend horror pick. Mexican Gothic, Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is Gothic mansion horror with family pressure, decaying luxury, and a reading experience that feels elegant, strange, and controlled. It is one of the best modern picks for viewers who like old house films but want a fresher setting and a shorter commitment than many classic horror novels. The lane here is mansion horror, not just a house, but a social world that feels polished on the surface and unhealthy underneath. The book works because it gives you recognizable Gothic ingredients without making the reading feel dusty. It has fashion, family expectation, isolation, and a house with a strong identity. It is also manageable in length, which makes it a strong beginner choice. Intensity is medium. The mood is uneasy rather than constantly aggressive. Choose it if you want atmosphere first, a modern voice, and a book that can satisfy horror fans without demanding that they already know horror literature. For many viewers, this is the safest, elegant entry after Hill House. It also has a clear visual identity, which helps movie fans transition into prose. You can imagine the rooms, clothes, hills, and family rules without needing a lecture on horror history. That makes the book easy to position in a visual channel. Use intensity labels to avoid choosing the wrong first horror book. The safest low-friction lane is Bird Box or Mexican Gothic if you want modern momentum without a huge page count. The most classic lane is Dracula if you want genre history and a recognizable monster tradition. The quietest literary lane is The Haunting of Hill House. The strongest iconic Stephen King lane is The Shining, with it saved for readers who want a much larger commitment. The serious possession lane is The Exorcist. The crime horror lane is The Silence of the Lambs. This guide is arranged by fit, not by prestige. Horror readers often quit because they choose the most famous title instead of the best entry for their taste. A movie fan who loves ghost stories may not want crime horror first. A thriller fan may not want a slow Gothic novel first. A classic monster fan may enjoy Dracula more than a modern survival novel. Match the subgenre before you match the author. That small decision keeps the reading experience calmer and makes the next book easier to choose. A simple rule helps. If you want fast pages, choose Bird Box. If you want elegance, choose Mexican Gothic. If you want the classic route, choose Dracula. If you want an iconic screen-to-page bridge, choose The Shining. This is not a complete series guide, and that is intentional. Some books here belong to larger worlds. The Shining has a related follow-up. Bird Box has a sequel. The Silence of the Lambs sits inside a broader Hannibal Lecter sequence. Dracula has countless adaptations and additions around it. This video does not show every connected book because the viewer problem is different. Horror movie fans are not usually asking for a collector map on the first click. They are asking which book feels closest to the film subgenre they already enjoy. For Amazon US and Audible recommendations, the stable choice is the first clear buying decision, not the most encyclopedic answer. That means one strong entry per lane. The Shining for Hotel Dread, The Exorcist for Possession, Bird Box for Survival, The Silence of the Lambs for Crime Horror, The Haunting of Hill House for Ghost Dread, Dracula for Gothic Monster History, It for the Big Small Town Project, Mexican Gothic for Modern Mansion Atmosphere. Completeness can come later. Clarity comes first. Later, a separate series guide can expand these worlds. For this video, the job is to make the first choice easy. If you want the safest overall starting point, choose Mexican Gothic for modern Gothic atmosphere, Bird Box for fast survival tension, or The Shining for the iconic horror movie bridge. Pick The Haunting of Hill House if you like quiet ghost stories. Pick Dracula if you want the classic monster route. Pick The Exorcist if you want serious possession horror and can handle a heavier tone. Pick The Silence of the Lambs if crime thrillers are already your comfort zone. Save it for the moment when you want a long Stephen King project rather than a quick test. That is the final decision rule. Start with the film subgenre you already enjoy, then choose the book that gives you the same kind of pressure and prose. Do not start with the longest book just because it is famous. Do not start with the harshest book just because it sounds important. Horror works best when the atmosphere matches your tolerance. The full book list is in the description, and the next guide on the channel helps you choose more horror books by intensity without spoilers. After that first book, move sideways before moving harder. Read another book in a nearby lane, then raise the intensity only when the tone still feels enjoyable. That keeps horror reading sustainable.